Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Giles Hindle from the University of Hull.
And I'm Andy and I'm from Social Innovation Agency AAM Associates.
Okay, we're fairly short for time, so we're going to go through the presentation fairly quickly. And if you're very interested in this research, we'll give you lots of signposts for where you can follow it up. Okay, so the content of the presentation, I'm going to speak very quickly about the project that we're talking about and how it was funded. Then Andy will talk to you a little bit about food banks and the food bank case. Then I'll talk about a new business analytics methodology that we developed as part of the project. Andy will then talk in more detail about the actual analytics practice that we delivered, and then just a few academic reflections at the end of the presentation. So the research project is a pilot study of the Nemode Network Plus research call, which was a 2014 funding call. And Nemode stands for New Economic Models in the Digital Economy, which was an area of research. And the aim of the project was to investigate the use of technology in changing and innovating food banks in the UK. And full details and reports are available for download at nemode.ac.uk. The project was led by myself and Richard Vidgen, and also Andy and Simon Raper from Capellia, which is a data science consultancy firm based in London. Okay, over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Giles. So let me introduce you to the Trussell Trust, one of the UK's brilliant charities. They actually just won Charity of the Year at the Charity of the Year Awards last week. So they are the largest UK food bank network. They have now 420 food banks across the country. They work on a social franchise model, mainly through churches. So local churches spot need in their community where people are going hungry, and they apply to the Trussell Trust to say, can we have your resource? And basically they give them guidance and support and resources and some funding, and as long as the guys sign up to their way of doing things, and particularly their way of collecting data and putting it into the broader system. So it's a bottom-up model where they get support and give support into local communities. And their mission is to empower local communities to combat poverty and exclusion. The way they do that is by providing food, but they're at the point where we'll see now where they've grown, where they actually need to think, actually, who are we and what are we trying to relieve here? There's been a big case study in the press, really, as the sort of touch point for austerity and the effects of austerity in the country. So a big political kicking ball over the last few years. You can see there, 2008, 2009, that they gave out 25,000 three-day emergency food supplies. So that's not necessarily individuals, so 2 or 3 people might have come back at the same time in the year, but that's the number of parcels distributed of three days' worth of food. Last year, it was 1.1 million. That they distributed across their network of 420 food banks. So rapid growth in quite a short amount of time. And you can see that through their financial history as well. So from a fairly small charity down there in 2011, they're now touching £7 million turnover, which is quite rapid. Again, the back office to try and deal with all that has been quite impressive to keep up with. Back to you, Giles.
So in order to engage with the Trussell Trust and develop a plan for the analytics that we wanted to do with them, as part of that process of trying to understand their business and understand their mission, we also developed on the more academic side of the project what became known as the business analytics methodology, which is a methodology which would apply to any organisation that would be thinking about taking advantage of analytics. It's a 4-step cycle. I'm just going to introduce you to it briefly and just give you a quick idea of what it might look like. 4 stages. First of all, starting with what we call problem structuring, which is trying to understand the basic business situation that the organisation is in. And that would lead to a more formal business model mapping, where we try and put a more formal definition on their business model. And then drilling down more into that business model using what we call the business model conceptualization, which is really a systems model which tries to drill down into the activities which the business is engaged with. And then that would lead to what became known as the business analytics leverage analysis, which is where we looked at all the activities that the business is engaged with and looked at each individual activity to see where there was an opportunity for analytics. So the underlying logic of this is that we certainly believed when we started doing the project, and certainly the project has supported that belief, that analytical work should always be driven by the business model which underpins a business, because as all of you will know who work in analytics, there's almost an unlimited number of analytical analyses and data you can go after. You really do need to identify those activities which are going to really give you value in terms of the business model. Okay, so just giving you a quick insight into each one of those stages. So the problem structuring is really about trying to summarise the situation that the organisation is in. So here's a few pictures from the workshops that we held with the Trussell Trust. So we did workshops with various stakeholders, both at the headquarters of the Trussell Trust, but also at individual food banks, giving them the opportunity to feed back to us what they thought were the key features of their business, what they thought the issues were, where they thought they might be heading, what their mission, what their values were. And we were trying to summarise that into an overall problem situation definition. And that ultimately became focused down and summarised in a picture here that was put into the reports that we were feeding back to the Trussell Trust. So that's an initial stage really of stakeholder engagement and problem structuring. Then that led to a more formal definition of their business model, which we used what's known as the business model canvas, which has been developed by researchers in information systems. And it's really just a systematic look through the key elements of a business model. And this type of business model mapping would work with any business in the public sector, private sector, and the third sector. The third step was then to drill down into the business model to really try and say a little bit more about the activities that the business was engaged with. So if you look on the business model canvas, there is a section which says key activities. And we didn't feel that that was sufficiently detailed for our purposes. So we drilled down using an SSM systems model, a soft systems methodology model, which allows you to drill down and say what are the core activities of this business and arrange those activities into a logical order. And this gives a nice level of detail for the fourth stage, which is to say, okay, so now we understand the business model and we've defined it and we've agreed what the business model is, and we can see what the activities are which the organisation is engaged with. Where are the opportunities for analytics? So systematically, every single activity is listed in the first column, and then we can then look at the sort of issues which are associated with each one of those activities, and also where the potential for analytics is for each of those activities. And that's where we started to get a feeling for where the Trussell Trust might be able to get value from analytics. So we also looked at overall performance measures for the system as well, as another source of ideas for where we might get value from analytics. Now, I haven't got time today to go into all of these activities, but it's all in the reports if you're interested. So this is our business analytics methodology, and we're now applying this methodology to other organisations in the third sector, but also in the private sector and also the public sector. I'm very keen to talk to anybody who's interested in working with this. Okay, over to Andy.
Thanks, Giles. So actually the research started out looking at digital more broadly. So while Giles was doing all this great work mapping the organisation and what they're trying to do and where they're doing it, on the other side we were finding, I think we found about 70 different digital tools, from apps to online bulk buying to online fundraising, and so a load of really exciting things that we thought might come to help them, but actually they weren't getting to the heart of what they needed. And at this point, having gone through this rapid growth and having this fairly stable network of 400 food banks delivering and meeting need locally, they were actually at the point where they said, we want to be about more than food. We're attracting people in crisis with food to help them, but how do we help them not come back again? What do we need to do to stop them coming to us? How else do we need to be partners within this network of poverty? And that's when we actually started to say, well, to do that, you need to know more about those customers, and that's why we came to analytics and the data that they have. So we did two things. One, we did some descriptive analytics, where we started to look at analysing what they've got and what they might learn from that. And looking at predictive models. And the bit we're going to run through in more detail is about a geospatial visualization app, where we actually just visualize the data, which we'll talk to you about in a minute. So descriptive, just 2 or 3 slides on this. That is a presentation of 2011 to 2015, their weekly food bank usage. So again, all of these, they'd never seen these in this way before. They had hunches about what was being done, massive spikes at Christmas, and for all of them, it's like, well, why is that happening? Is it because the food banks are closing over Christmas and people are doing that? What is it? So again, all of these things are just prompting them to think more about why these things happen and what additional steps, what actions they might need to take if these are issues. The second thing, again, they'd never sort of looked in as sort of visually rich way as this, as that breaks down across all of their 9 English regions. And on the right-hand side there, the Trust are really good at collecting data on why people come to them. So those are the crisis type that individuals who are in need, when they come to them and say, this is why I'm here, it's because my benefits have changed, it's because I haven't got food for my kids during school holidays. And so just simply seeing these bar charts across a region, you can start to see, are there any differences? Where might 2 regions align because they're facing the same sort of issues and things like that. And then thirdly, taking a sort of a more holistic and strategic view, we started to look at the trend of how they sort of go. So on the left-hand side there, you've got the average people per week that they're doing, and that model fits a number of different customer-facing organisations in many areas. So again, just to say, okay, we're plateauing off now, where are we as an organisation? So again, there's loads more of that in the reports. But the second thing is about a food bank app. So they have data, their main data source was where their food banks are located, where people who are coming from, so we use postcode data of their clients, what types of crisis they were facing, and then we move to a map. And on the left-hand side there, I should say any questions you have for this will be more detailed answered in the afternoon. Simon's down here and Richard's down here, give them a wave. They're going to talk through the mapping exercise that we did. And the second thing that they did, once we'd sort of set out where the deeper usage areas were, Simon did some great work in aligning, okay, if these are the characteristics of those areas, what open deprivation sets are there that would establish the characteristics of those areas, which might then predict a model to say where you might be needed in other areas of the country where you're not currently being served. So the visuals will help. So this, again, they'd never seen anything like this. So normally they're looking at data sets in Excel spreadsheets. This is how we started to map it. The orange dots are where there are food banks, Trussell Trust food banks. There are independent food banks which aren't listed on here, but we're looking to try and get that data as well. The darker the colour, basically, the greater the usage. So already they've got a tool to say, hang on, this is a way we've never seen our networks before. Where are we based? Where are our crisis points? And some of this they kind of knew by hunch, but some of it they'd never seen before. So again, we'll talk to some of the questions they might answer. And you can drill down, so you can zoom in. So that's South Wales, pretty bleak picture of where people are actually using food. And again, we'll come in a minute to what they might do with this. The predicted need element, again, was a different hat to wear to look at, okay, we know where we're doing well, where are we not meeting need? So there are big areas there where they're quite a long way away from a food bank. Do we need to go there? But there's some strategic decisions there. So this whole event is about insight to action. So they've got these pretty pictures. What do they do with them? And this is the hard part. So if you look here, the other thing that Simon did as part of the platform is when you click on an individual food bank, it will show you the outer edges of where people have come from based on their postcode. So there up in the northeast, that's a hell of a long way to come for a 3-day food parcel. Now some of that might be data entry error, but actually it just makes them go back and say, are we in the right place? Is our referral network close? Because people are coming past food banks to come and get food off us. Is that right? What's our referral network? So all of this is driving them to look a bit more closely about what they do. Secondly, location, similar thing. So you can see, again, up in the northeast, they're down there on a bit further down on the south coast, and their areas of greatest usage are quite a way away. So they might just say, actually, do we need to start a new food bank up there? Do we need to relocate? Is it about location, and is it about referrals again? Again, wouldn't have seen this just from a database. Interesting location stuff. So their greater usage in the dark area is there, but they've also got some outliers over on the left-hand side where people are coming to them from. How has that happened? What is it? Do we need to set up there or build partnerships there? And when you drill down into the particular crisis types, because you can also present them, this is up in the northwest where there are homeless. People are coming to them saying, our greatest issue is homelessness. This is where they start to think, using analytics, how are we as a strategic body? How are we about more than food? Are we a homeless agency? Which homeless agencies in the area? Do they know? What would they say if they see this information? How can we use this to be a better partner and work out what that need is specifically? They're coming to us for food, but it's talking about a different issue. Again, similar sort of thing, school holiday crisis. This is where people have said, look, schools are out, they get free school meals normally, I'm stuffed, I need help. How can you help us? And just being able to drill down and isolate that data on a map has really, really helped them to say, these parts of the country are where we seem to have a worse school holiday crisis. What do we do? How do we take this to the local authority? How do we tell people that this is a real issue that needs to be met? And the predicted need, I think, is perhaps the biggest strategic issue they have to face. And it comes to my point of the easy work is almost done. Given them this stuff and say, now what are you going to do about it? Because as I said earlier, they've started by rising up from the bottom, where people have said, there's a need in my community. Can you meet it? Sure, here's our model, here's our resource, let's take it forward and push it that way. Now, when you look at the map, there are large areas of the country where there are really dark blue maps built on this predictive model, and they're not there. And they have a question, do they go there and fill and meet that need, or do they work out a different way of doing it? One fact I'll leave you with, as part of this research, we reached out to a couple of food banks in the States. Feeding America, which is just one of their food banks over there, turned over $1.8 billion last year. $1.8 billion to feed people in crisis. They faced a big thing back in the 70s in America where food poverty was big on the rise. Lots of charities filled that need and filled that space, and they are now an indelible part of that welfare support network. Do the Trussell Trust want to do that? So big strategic decisions where they can see need unmet. What do they do to be about more than food and be strategic and meet a need that doesn't embed them in the case? And finally, they've been really great at media coverage. As you see, part of them being a part of a political football was them saying, look, there's a crisis. They already are loving these pictures because those pictures can lead, and it just draws people in to say, this is where we are facing need in this country. And locally as well as saying, I want to show the MPs this usage map. I want to show the local authorities this usage map. This is a really strong picture using the data we have, not in a spreadsheet, that will help us to take it out there and try and meet this need.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so just a few reflections really on the project overall. Certainly, we started off the project very much of the opinion that analytics had to be driven by business value. So, as someone who's been working in analysis and analytics all my career, this was something that I've seen time and time again. And I think operational research is particularly good at this. It has always argued that really what we're trying to do is provide insight which is actually valuable to decision makers. And certainly in this project we got an awful lot of value from the problem structuring and the business modelling, because that enabled us as analysts to understand where the value might be for the trust. It's also worth pointing out that process of looking at an organisation's situation and developing a model of their business and looking deeply at that is a process that we would also use for any organisation that was interested in innovating their business model or just doing strategic thinking anyway. So all of the benefits that you would get from a project which was oriented towards innovation and strategic thinking would automatically be included in this type of project as well. So the Trust were able to also engage with a strategic conversation with us about their business model and about where they wanted to go. It wasn't just all about analytics. However, it was really nice in this project, I think, that we had a group of analytics members, and we also had the more sort of strategic business models as well. And you could see that the integration of that top-down, if you like, strategic thinking and the sort of bottom-up analytics work was quite messy. So as you would expect, data scientists, analysts were tending to go straight for the data, whereas the business modelers were tending to sort of try and really talk about the business model first. But over a period of time and through workshops, we were able to integrate and go round that cycle. I think we learned a lot about analytics in a community context as well. I think we would argue that this methodology is equally applicable in the private, public and third sector, but there were certainly elements of the community context here which came out strongly. So I think it's very, very important in this sector to appreciate the values and the mission of the organisation because obviously values, mission is important in any organisation, but potentially different in a third sector context. In the USA, a lot of the analytics within the community context has been oriented towards geospatial, and certainly we also saw a real value for that, and Andy's gone through that really nicely. There was no doubt that the Trussell Trust were keen to see geospatial visualization. Another theme that came out, and this has been coming out in the USA as well, is this need for integrated, user-friendly databases. So the third sector, I mean, the reality is all sectors, but particularly in the third sector, data is quite sporadic, and different organisations have different data sets, and there's enormous opportunity for collaboration, and Andy and the team are really looking into that now as to how we can help third sector organisations to collaborate to bring their data together. But that process requires appropriate organisational resources and capabilities. So we were really fortunate on this project to have, you know, genuine expertise with the help of Capellia on the data science side, and that was fantastic. But obviously that can get extremely technical, and of course a third sector organisation may struggle to be able to work with that. I mean, open data, open source software is fantastic, but it's not always that user-friendly. So this issue of how do you bring data together and make it available and usable, I mean, of course that's an issue for all organisations, but it was very clear an issue in this project as well. Okay, so that's our presentation. As I say, if you're interested, if you want to know more, please go to nemo.ac.uk. You're very welcome to contact the members of the team, myself, Richard Vidgen, University of New South Wales, Andy Hamflett and Simon Raper from Capellia. So I'm sure we'd all be very happy to talk to you about the project if you're interested.
Could I just say one, thanks Giles, just say one more thing about what we think's next. So this was an early stage experimentation to see if there's any value in this. From the excited responses we're getting from the Trussell, we think there is. And Richard and I presented at their National Food Bank conference a couple of weeks back, and there was a queue of people to come and look at this on the laptop and play with it and find out what's happening in their local area, which is quite encouraging. Three things we're going to do next, and do come and talk to us if you want to come and play on these. One, we need to find them more money to, this is a prototype, so we need to work out, get some user design workshops, get loads more food banks in the room, what features do you need for this, what more data do you want to pull in, and get that working for them so they can have it and run off. Secondly, actually this is about poverty. So what other data sets can we bring in? Can we do a test in the East End of London and bring 6 charities together so they're all sharing their user data? Big challenges to share that data between each other, but once they see this, people are saying, oh yeah, I can see how this would feed into something. And then thirdly, actually, this just shows there's lots of resource in different areas, in data science, commercially. Charities do have a lot of data, they don't know how to explore it. There's a load of open data out there that doesn't have a use case to actually bring it to life to be useful, and we're trying to bring more and more people together to do that. Thank you.